Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Jennifer Lemcke, the CEO of Weedman. Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jordan.
Yeah, no problem. It's so exciting to be able to chat with fellow Canadian franchise leaders.
Yeah, no, it's so nice to that you've welcomed me onto the show. I love this industry, so I'm excited to share my journey through the franchising world.
Awesome, and I'm excited to ask and learn all about it. So you have 25 plus years in the franchising industry. Could you kind of give our listeners a bit of history as to like what your experience is and kind of where you are now?
Yeah, no, it's actually been a bit longer than that. So if I go back in time, I started with Weedman. My dad bought his first franchise in Hull, Quebec. We were actually one of the very first Weedman franchisees. And so he did that when I was 16 years old. And so, kind of did odd jobs here and there for him, just as a small startup. And mainly mall shows, telemarketing at the time, and just got my feet wet. Went to university, had actually no aspirations of joining the company. And at that time, he only had one franchise. When I went off to university, he had just purchased 7 more territories in the Montreal marketplace. And, again, really no aspirations. And I went to university where I met my husband, and I was actually working at the University of Ottawa at the time, and just really a great experience. And then I started to see my dad gain a bit of wealth and, new cars and new houses, and, started to peek across the fence going, hey, maybe this might be something that we'd be interested in. And my husband and I, we were dating at the time, we're, engaged. So he was from a background, his dad was in construction, his mom was in real estate. So there was kind of a fit. There was that entrepreneurial spirit on both our sides. So we joined the company, and we actually started in Ottawa, Ontario. And that was a really great experience where we learned, well, I actually did a year full-time with my dad's office in Hull, Quebec, and then moved into the Ottawa franchise, where really did every single position in the company, and learned it from the ground up, which I think was in the end invaluable for what I do now. So, keep in mind, we were a franchisee of the Weedman founder, Des and Brenda Rice. So we bought the Ottawa franchise, we bought the Scarborough franchise, and really started to build kind of a multi-unit franchise system in Canada. So in Canada, we own about 45 franchises. We've done acquisitions and amalgamated them into, I'll call them our corporate stores, but we are still owner operated, where all of our managers are also owners in our franchise system. So as we built these franchise kind of ecosystem in Canada, we started to look southwards, and Weedman wasn't there. So we approached the founder, Des Rice, and said, would you consider selling us the master rights to the US, and he agreed because we had done so well in our Canadian operations. So that was in, I guess it was 95, and I was still working in operations and kind of doing my thing, and with Chris, my husband. And when we started to take off, the first few years in the US, we were, you have to write your, well, at the time it was the UFOC, now the franchise disclosure document, which we have in Canada as well now. But, and we tested a few markets and realized if we were going to be successful in the US, we needed to get Americans involved. So we subdivided the US in large geographic areas and created like a sub-franchise model. So, in the franchising world, a lot of people will think of that as area developers. We call them sub-franchisers. They're a little bit more than an area developer. And with those folks, we just created really great partnerships. And that's where our growth in the US really started to explode. So I joined Turf Holdings, which was our U.S. company that in the U.S. So I joined them in 2000. And when I started with Weedman USA, we were at $1 million of sales back in 2000. And this year we're close to $149 million in revenue. And then to fast forward to 2018, Brenda Rice approached us, wanted to retire from the business, and asked if we'd be interested in buying the Canadian franchise side of Weedman, and we thought that would be a perfect fit. So took over the Canadian, not as a franchisee now, we're the franchisor. So we've had really great success since we've done that. So we've been operating now as a franchisor in Canada and the US, and we also have 3 franchises in the UK. So very long-winded answer, sorry. But you asked, so.
No, I love it. And I like, wow, you essentially grew up with the Weedman brand, and the ins and outs of everything. So one question I want to start, and we'll drill down from there, is what have been some of your biggest learnings from expanding to the US market to now being the head franchisor of the entire company?
Yeah, I've certainly learned a lot of lessons. I've been really blessed. I work with my dad and my husband. So my dad has served as an incredible mentor to me. I spoke of our sub-franchisors across the US. I was fairly young when I started. I headed up the US division, but with their help and guidance, they really, really helped kind of train me to be who I am today. I would say as a franchisor, my biggest lessons learned is that, and it's funny, it's not really a lesson, it's just who we are, it's our culture, but staying laser focused on franchisees' success. So if you do that and keep them in the front of you, then you're always going to be aligned and create great relationships, because if they win, you win. It's when the franchisor, well, in my opinion, starts to get in front of the franchisee and starts dragging them along and telling them, it seems to create an environment of friction where, we've been really blessed. We've got an incredible franchise network. And just by making sure that they're successful at all costs, there's this unbelievable trust that we've been able to create with our franchisees. And it just kind of works for us. So I would say, if someone were to ask me that question, or any advice I'd give to somebody looking to franchise, would be to just stay really laser focused on making the franchisee successful.
Interesting. And you said something that piqued my interest. It's making sure that you as a franchisor, you don't get in front of your franchisees and drag them along. Can you give me an example of that happening in the past, and maybe what franchisors today can do to prevent that?
Yeah, you know, that's I mean, you hear kind of sometimes some horror stories, ad funds or, franchisors leading with the contract to get their franchisees to do things. We're not a brand that goes to our contract very often. I mean, we know it's there, it's the rules of engagement, but we we're always looking at creating systems or identifying opportunities that are going to help with the top line, bottom line of the franchisees. And, of course, sometimes there's things we've made mistakes in the past, but those mistakes are typically smaller and the franchisees are forgiving of some of those. But by and large, I think we've really, because I've grown up in operations, I know what it's like to gain a customer, lose a customer, and everything in between. I know how it feels, when a customer's upset with you. And if a franchisee loses sight of the customer, then we get ourselves into trouble. So for me as a franchisor, my franchisees are my customer. So I make sure that I listen to them, and not just hear them, but listen to them and find out. And there are times what they're saying is noise. And you have to be prepared as a franchisor to have the facts behind you to get them to maybe think a little differently at the issue at hand. So without trust, though, you wouldn't be able to do that. And I feel like if, you're not full disclosure, if you don't show transparency as a brand, and like I said, laser focused on the success of the franchisees, if you start to, I've seen brands where they'll change their contract and they'll change renewal fees or renewal terms. And if you do that too often, a franchisee is like, well, wait a minute, there's something behind the curtain here that I'm not seeing, I don't understand. And if you don't communicate with them, you put yourself in a compromising situation. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did, and you did a fantastic job answering it. One thing that you mentioned that has been brought up on previous episodes is making sure that you listen to your franchisees and actually take action from it. So I'm curious, like, what are some ways that you're doing that in a productive way? I'd also like to hear, hopefully I'm not overwhelming you with questions, but also love to hear about how you're breaking away from and kind of sifting through that noise that you also mentioned.
So a couple of things. Our sub-franchisors, as mentioned before, also own what we'll call flagship offices. So they're in operation. So they're charged with awarding franchises, supporting the franchise, and they also have an operation. By and large, they do. And so they're very close to the front line, and we do zero-based budgeting with all of our franchisees. So every sub, if a franchisee falls in their geographical area, the sub does the business plan with them. And then if they fall in an area where we don't have a sub, it's directly with my team at Turf Holdings. And then in Canada, we do that. So we start with a business plan, and like I said, it's zero-based budgeting. So it's a clean slate, and we go, okay, well, we know we're going to renew X amount of customers. So, we look at history and we figure out ways, and then we look at all of our different kind of buckets of areas, and we track that really, really well. So we have probably 85% of our franchisees that are on what we call a sales analysis program. So the relationship with the sub and the franchisee is very close. We spend 2-3 days with the franchisees building out their plan for the year, and it's very, very extensive. Then we take that business plan and we put it into what we call our sales analysis program. And this program has algorithms to see, where they should be at certain weeks of the year and whatnot. So with that program, they actually meet with one of our Turf Holdings, I'll call them our consultants in-house. They're one of our team members. And they meet with them weekly or bi-weekly and really assess where they are and where they said they would be at this time. So in the marketing, specifically in the marketing. And then the sub-franchisor also sits in on those conversations. So it's a really and very, very candid conversations happen. So you can imagine, we are talking to 85% of our franchisees weekly on where they are, where they're going, and how they're going to get there. So you get a lot of feedback. So we listen to them, but we also have the data behind it. So, somebody could say, well, this can't be done in my area. And we have, all across the United States, people that are doing it. So that kind of takes away some of that noise and there's leaderboards and they can see where they are. And believe me, our franchisees don't like to be in the bottom 25%. They want to be in the top 25%. So we have this really, we've created a culture of wanting to win through this program and analytics, and we track everything. So you can't hide from the numbers. I mean, the numbers tell you, and then you look at a different market that's right next to you and you say, well, I can't do this. Well, then why can they? So the conversations are productive conversations. And again, back to the trust, we trust each other so much. It's not like we're trying to go, aha, you're doing this wrong. What we're trying to do is like, aha, here's an opportunity. How can we help you be better? And it's just that give and take. So that is really how we stay really in step with the franchisees, is through the sub-franchise network. We know what's going on the front lines. Don't forget, we're also a franchisee in Canada, although at an arm's length. We do have some what we'll call corporate offices. So we're very in tune with what's going on there and are watching the numbers closely there. And we have, I guess, a very loose, what we would call an ambassador group in Canada, just because they're kind of new as the franchisor. So I wanted not to just have a corporate perspective. I wanted to be down at the smaller franchise and figure out what they wanted and listen to them as well. So, and I guess last but not least, my husband and I make ourselves incredibly available. Like every one of my franchisees have my cell phone numbers. They can reach me at any time. They know that. They're very respectful of that. And, emergencies, I'm available on weekends, but most weekends they're not tapping on my shoulder and wanting just to chat. They know that I have a life. And so, yeah, it's just, there's a lot of respect. We run our business not by gut, we run it by numbers, and they respect that. We've grown up. Everyone in our head office, other than our digital team, have all been in operation. They've run small operations to very large operations. So they know what it feels like. And they're also part owners in the business. So it just kind of works for us.
I love it. And I love the fact that you brought up and are actively using data to drive your decisions. Because like as a fellow data nerd, I love it. Like I studied economics in university, so I'm gobbling this up. I'm curious, what interesting insights have you found by leveraging data in just day-to-day growth?
We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of different data points. I think one of the biggest things, we're a home service. So in home service, we're very specific. We're targeting single family dwelling homes. So just that alone is very data driven. So there's an opportunity for us, and we have, our outbound efforts versus our inbound efforts. A lot of our marketing is outbound, where you control that environment. So let's say if I have a calling campaign to people that were old customers with us, I've identified them into a bucket. I know exactly how many people are in my bucket per franchise. I know which ones are not on the do not call list that I can call, or that we have waivers that we can call them. I'm able to identify per shift what a person doing calling can do. And if they're not meeting that criteria, I can fix that very easily through training or coaching. I know how many decisions that they can get or should be getting. And if they're not, again, I can train, I can coach, I can, bring them up to where I need them to be. And then finally, the closing rate. Because of the data that I keep, I can dial that into a point of a percentage because the data is so concise and clear. So I think it starts really with data management and understanding your different buckets of marketing that you do and what the expectations. We're working with 25 years of data, if not more. And we know the algorithms, when a new employee starts, we know it takes them 2 weeks to get to where they need to go. So don't panic if they're not performing. But after that 2-week threshold, we know historically this is what the curve looks like. So it allows us to really be very focused on coaching and helping, I guess, the employee be as best that they can using data to achieve those results. So, although we're in lawn care, that's what we do, we're really you become a marketing type company when you allow data to help you make your decisions. Lawn care is just what we end up doing in the end, but this business is so much bigger than that. Probably one of the things that have been the toughest adjustment for us as we move into, our current situation is this past year, the influx of inbound that has come to us and with COVID and whatnot. More people are staying home. More people are staycationing because they can't go anywhere. They're really looking after their lawns. I'm sure if you talk to pool franchises, to landscaping folks, everyone is booked till into next year. Well, we had that COVID bump as well. So I don't know what next year looks like, but and that's the problem with inbound. It's very hard to know what that's going to look like. I know outbound, I can put X amount of effort. If I do certain things, I can get to where I want to be. But inbound is a bit of an unknown. And that's a little bit scary when you're watching the numbers. There's some of it that is, you can say, okay, with this amount of effort, I should get these results, but the word should is a little bit tentative when I say that. Whereas the other side, we understand it so well. So it's an interesting phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love how you're you've been able to understand how much to pull a certain outbound lever when, say, certain inbound levers aren't quite pulling their weight, so to speak.
Yeah. And we do that a lot because of these weekly calls. We're able to, I think that sometimes you can go to a franchise and you visit a franchise and, you go in and you say, okay, yes, they're maintaining the brand and all, and that's kind of the rules of engagement. But when you can go into a franchise location and sit down with them and say, here's where you're at. This is where you said you wanted to go with your business plan. How are we going to get there? And this is exactly what you need to do to get there. It's pretty powerful. So it's not like we're going in there going, oh, well, if you might put a few flyers out, you might get this. And if you do this, you might get this. We know, we absolutely know. So the data just gives you so much confidence when you're talking with a franchisee. And it also gives a franchisee a lot of confidence in what you're saying. So I think that, as a franchisor, for us anyway, it's been a very powerful tool. Our sales analysis program and our business planning platform that we use has been incredibly beneficial to our growth.
And I can imagine that this data and just being collaborative and hands-on has helped create a more sticky system and putting new franchisees at ease.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It really has. And, like as a franchisor, you can't give, revenue predictions to a new franchisees, but that's something that when they do their due diligence and call other franchisees, and I know that they ask these questions, what do you like about the system? And I know essentially what probably comes out of 90% of our franchisees. Well, we love the support, the systems that they give. It all starts with the business plan, then it flows into sales analysis. So we're all talking the same language. So the experience from when these new franchisees are doing their due diligence, it's probably very, very familiar to them, each call that they make. So, and I guess, as I said that, the sales analysis program and the way we budget, we all look at our data the same exact way. So having that same language across all of North America is very powerful because we're all talking the same language. We all understand the numbers. We know what falls into every bucket, and that's where we start with new franchisees. So I think you're right. I think it does put people at ease that we've got all of this data.
I love it. So switching gears a little, we've talked about marketing a bit, and this is kind of marketing growth podcast. I'm curious, what has been the most successful marketing campaign that you've ran?
Our door knocking efforts, without a doubt. Again, an outbound methodology. It represents most years. We had to drop it last year, and thank goodness for the inbound influx, because we really couldn't door knock with the pandemic going on. So I would say door knocking is number one. It represents a little over 50% of all of our new customers as a system as a whole. And last year that got dropped in March. So we lost that ability, and then we were able to pick it up on the inbound. So we were incredibly lucky to be able to get that bump. We'll call it a COVID assist on it. And so, yeah, it's been good. And I would say probably our secondary on the inbound side, if we look what's been our biggest thing on the inbound, we last year, we launched a new website, unbeknownst to that COVID was coming. But with that website, we launched Buy Online, where now a customer can come in, put in their address, and if we have their lot size on file, we'll be able to give them a price right away, and they can buy right through to the end. So that was just a great thing. And then that created, now with COVID continuing and probably into next year, we're able to now go back to some of our door knocking and have a no touch type door knocking. If they say yes, we can just push them their quote right from a tablet and not touch anything. So this has helped us to pivot, building out this system for a no touch type effort.
That's really cool. And what I love is the tangential benefit from now allowing the online bookings is that you're kind of closing that feedback loop from a marketing perspective. Because like I see so many franchisors, spending thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing efforts, and they're generating leads, but they don't know from an actual like tangible monetary aspect which channel is driving the most profitability. And it sounds like you've kind of cracked that code on it, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we watch that very, very closely. Our ad fund, a lot of franchisors' ad funds are, really geared towards branding, and branding's good. But for us, and this is my dad, he said, there's no way that I want to run an ad fund to be a branding effort. The number one mandate of the ad fund is to send leads to our franchisees. And he said, don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. So our ad fund, that is the number one thing. And every single person on our digital team that takes care of what we do on the internet is remunerated by the amount of leads we drive to our franchisees. So they are fully in line with just drive leads to the franchisee. So they're so innovative in that department. They're looking, and they're young and innovative and out there, and they talk things sometimes I'm like, what are you talking about? But they know it. They've got this for sure. So so it's been good, some of our inbound, but like anything in life, sometimes luck is involved. I keep going, is this going to end? It's scary at times. Like COVID was certainly a very scary time being a leader. When you have franchisees, their livelihoods, their employees' livelihoods, they're all eyes are on you going, okay, what's next? And you're like, I don't know, there's no handbook here to help me figure this out. But again, I go back to trust. So it was good. So anyway.
Awesome. So we've talked about the past a lot. What does the future look like for you and the Weedman brand?
One of the things that we are very anxious to get started on, which is our next biggest project, is we have what's called a customer portal. And we want to bring in professionals and experts, consultants, to really look at our customer's journey, our customer experience, and blow up our portal. So we have, when somebody is a candidate looking to potentially buy lawn care, we've got the formula and figured out on our website. But now once they become a customer, what does that journey look like? And, we have franchisees that are very, very successful in creating a really good journey, but it's not, how do I put it? It's maybe not as standard as it could be. And I'd like to rectify that, but not standardize it in a way that doesn't make sense. I want it to make sense on a consumer basis. I want the consumer to be at the front of this experience, and not through my eyes, not through the franchisee's eyes or what we think they want. So for us, I think it's going to be redefining and maybe we're doing great. Who knows? But I think there's room for us to be better. So I really want to, I'm excited to start this project. It'll probably be first quarter of 2021 where we'll look to hire the consultants. So we need to do some vetting and then bring them on and kind of get them up to speed on how we currently do things. So, really establish what current state is and then what we want future state to be. And then figure out a map on how we're going to get there and get our IT people, our software developers, our website developers, all in line with what this future state, and then start to work towards that. So I think that's, for us, the biggest thing that I'm most excited about. And I think our franchisees are going to be really excited about this to really, look at opportunities, especially now with technology and what you can do and what you can deliver to the customer and the communication touch points that we can be better at. I think will make it a much better customer experience.
Very cool. That sounds super exciting. So Jennifer, we are coming up on time for this episode, but one way I like to end it is with something called the lightning round. So it's just a few fast-paced questions coming at you. Are you ready?
Oh, I hope so.
They're easy ones, I promise.
Okay.
So first one is, what is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
Zoom.
Great choice, especially in today's COVID world.
Yes.
All right. Second question is, what is your favorite book?
I'm going to go back in time and say The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Fantastic book. Oh yeah. Who is a franchise leader that you look up to?
There's so many in my company or outside of the company.
Can be anywhere.
Okay. My dad.
Awesome. And last but not least, Jennifer, last question, I promise. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
Oh, great question. Glad you asked. Weedmanfranchise.com is where we're at. And then the consumer facing one is weedman.com. So look forward to anybody that wants to know more. And man, did I ever enjoy talking with you today?
Well, it was a blast, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being on. I know our listeners are going to really appreciate your knowledge and insights.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.